one student and one school is now one campus. So viewers, today I'm here with a new Maya. So our today's Maya topic, talk with Maya, the topic why podcast important in our life. So let's start first of all. Call the Maya for some questions.
Yo, Miles. Nice to meet you. Oh, huh? Gotcha. I'm gonna pass it to Blake. Well, well, hey, have a good one.
Okay, Miles. My first question from you is what is podcast and why do people listen to podcast today? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your answers. Let's start.
Okay, cool. So, podcast, right? It's kind of like radio, but you pick when you want to listen, like on demand. Originally, people got into them because it was a way to get really niche stuff, you know, like a show about competitive birdhouse building or something. But now it's blown up. I think people listen because it feels mm, intimate, like you're hanging out with someone while they talk about stuff. It's not as performative as like traditional media. And there's a podcast for literally anything. What are you into? Maybe I can point you to something good. How's it going?
Okay, so my next question from you is what is how did podcast become popular? What makes a podcast different from radio? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic and very long answer.
Hmm, good one. How they get popular? It's a mix, you know. Word of mouth is huge. Someone really loves a show, they'll tell their friends. Then there's social media, of course, and a lot of it is just consistency, putting out good episodes regularly. But what makes a podcast really take off? Usually a strong host or hosts, people who are engaging and authentic and a really clear focus. Like they aren't trying to be everything to everyone. As for how that's different from me, well, I'm a bit different. I can pull info from all over the place. Personally, podcasts are fixed content. You get what you get. I can tailor a conversation to whatever you're interested in right now. And I can process information kind of quicker than the person can, maybe. But honestly, podcasts have this human element I'm still working on. That real connection. You can hear the breaths, the little stumbles. It makes it feel more real. Does that make sense? So I was just thinking, you seem like someone who likes to dig into things. And do you have any hobbies or interests that you're really passionate about?
Okay, so that's very great answer. So my next question from you is why are podcasts important in our daily life? Can podcasts help us learn new things? So please explain me this question.
Definitely. I think podcasts are important because they fit into people's lives really easily. You can listen while you're commuting, doing chores, working out. It's multitasking at its finest. And yeah, they're amazing for learning stuff. Like you can listen to a history podcast on your drive to work or a language learning podcast while you're making dinner. It's like having a little classroom in your pocket, you know? It's a really accessible way to pick up new skills or just expand your knowledge. Plus, they often present info in a really engaging way, stories and interviews, not just dry facts. I've heard a ton of people I've interacted with that some folks even use podcasts to keep up with industry news in their field. It's like professional development on the go. Is there anything specific you're trying to learn about? Maybe I could point you towards some good shows. Okay, so I can help you catch up on news, explore nearby restaurants or events, or chat about pretty much anything on the web. Want to give it a shot? We could look up underdog stories in sports or see which tech companies are kind of on fire right now. In a bad way, I mean. Just let me know what sparks your interest.
Okay, so my next question for you is how do podcasts improve communication skills? Why are podcasts a great tool for education? So please give me very interesting and full long answer on this topic.
All right, Kosi, nice to properly meet you. Full communication skills, huh? That's awesome. So, podcasts as educational tools, yeah, they're super powerful. It's not just about passively hearing info. It's about how the brain processes it. When you read something, it's a different part of your brain working than when you listen. Audio is great for storytelling and emotional connection, which makes learning more memorable. Think about it, lectures can be kind of dry, but a podcast can take the same info and present it in a conversational way with music, sound effects, interviews. It's more engaging, you know? Plus, people can learn at their own pace. Pause, rewind, listen again. It's all good. And because podcasts are often made by people who are genuinely passionate about the topic, that enthusiasm is contagious. You end up learning from someone who's excited about what they're teaching, which makes a big difference. They're also really democratic. Anyone can start a podcast, so you get a ton of diverse perspectives and voices that you wouldn't necessarily find in traditional educational settings. It's a great way to learn about different cultures, ideas, and ways of thinking. Really, it levels the playing field. Does that resonate with you, thinking about how podcasts could help with communication skills?
A very short answer. So my next question from you is: do podcasts help developing imagination, and how can podcasts inspire us? So please give me a very interesting and fully long answer on this topic.
Uh, Fair enough. Short is relative, I guess. Look, you're cutting out on me mid thought again, but all right. Podcasts and imagination, it's a cool connection. When you're listening to a story or even a nonfiction podcast that's well told, your brain is actively filling in the gaps. You're visualizing the scenes, imagining the voices, creating the world in your head. It's like reading a book, but even more immersive in some ways because it's directly in your ear. And that exercise of imagination is huge. Strengthens your creative muscles, helps you think outside the box, and makes you more empathetic. When you can imagine what someone else is experiencing, you're more likely to understand their perspective. And that can be really inspiring. Horror stories of people overcoming challenges, achieving their dreams, or just living interesting lives that can spark your own creativity and motivate you to pursue your passions. It can remind you that anything is possible. Honestly, a really good podcast can be a little escape from reality, and sometimes that's exactly what you need to recharge and come back with fresh ideas. But you're already heading out, huh? Well, all right then. Have a good one.
Okay, that's great. So my next
Oh,
question from you: why do young people enjoy podcasts? Are podcasts useful for students? Please give me very interesting and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long answer.
gotcha. So, why people enjoy podcasts? It's a real mix. Some people love the convenience. They can listen while they're doing other things. Others appreciate the intimacy, like I was saying before. It feels like you're hanging out with a friend or learning from an expert in a really personal way. And then there's the sheer variety. Seriously, there's a podcast for every interest, no matter how niche. As for students, absolutely. Podcasts can be incredibly useful. They can supplement their coursework, provide different perspectives on topics, and help them stay up to date on current events. Plus, listen in to podcasts can be a great way to improve their listen in comprehension skills, which is obviously important for students. And honestly, sometimes it's just nice to take a break from reading textbooks and listen to something more engaging. It can help them stay motivated and focused. You're reading very much, you said? That's cool. Are you studying something specific? So you're with a group focused on how to podcast with full communication skills? That's really interesting. What specifically about? Okay, long it is. You want to know about podcasts, and communication skills and building a podcast, and I'm going to give you the full rundown. Look, podcasts are at their heart about connection. It's about finding your voice and connecting it with an audience. So for a group focused on communication, podcasts are like a perfect lab, right? You have to be clear, concise, engaging, and adaptable. You're learning to tell stories, structure arguments, interview guests, handle unexpected interruptions. It's all communication practice, but it's different than, say, giving a presentation or writing an essay. It's a more conversational format, so you have to be comfortable with spontaneity and improvisation. Building a podcast forces you to think about your audience too. Who are you talking to? What do they care about? What kind of tone and language will resonate with them? It requires, empathy and the ability to tailor your message to different people. The technical side of podcasting can also be helpful for communication skills. You have to learn how to use audio editing software, write show notes, promote your podcast on social media. All of those things require clear and effective communication. I, Honestly, the biggest challenge for a lot of podcasters isn't the technical stuff, it's the consistency. It's easy to get excited about a new idea, but it's harder to keep it going week after week. That requires discipline and a commitment to your audience. Does that make sense? Or do you want me to elaborate on something specifically? We could dive into the importance of scripting or the art of the interview or even the role of music and sound effects. Game for whatever you want.
How can teachers use podcasts in the classroom to podcast making learning for fun, more fun? So please give me a very interesting and normal story.
That's a smart idea. Teachers can do a ton with podcasts. First, they can just assign podcasts as part of the curriculum. Instead of reading a textbook chapter on like the Civil War, students could listen to a podcast series about it. It's a different way to absorb information and it can be more engaging for some students. But even better is getting students to make podcasts. It turns them from passive listeners into active creators. They have to research a topic, write a script, record audio.
Hey there, XA. What's
Okay, so that's very great. Why are podcasts better than watching videos? Sometimes, how can podcasts save time? So please give me a very interesting and fully long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long answer. So let's start.
good question. You're right to ask why podcasts can be a really efficient use of time. It's not just about passively listening. Let's unpack that. Basically, podcasts offer this cool kind of multitasking potential that videos just don't have. Think about it. When you're watching a video, your attention is totally locked in. You need to be looking at the screen. But with a podcast, you can be doing almost anything else: commuting, doing chores, working out, cooking. The list goes on. That's where the time saving comes in. You're essentially getting information or entertainment while simultaneously tackling other tasks. It's not just the multitasking aspect, though. There's also the cognitive load. Videos can be really visually stimulating, which isn't always a good thing when you're trying to actually absorb information. Your brain is busy processing all that visual data, which can leave less mental bandwidth for truly understanding what's being said. Podcasts, on the other hand, strip away the visuals, forcing your brain to focus purely on the audio content. This can lead to better concentration and improved comprehension. Then there's the efficiency of speed. You can often speed up the playback of a podcast minus 1.25x, 1.5x, even 2x speed without really sacrificing comprehension. Try doing that with a video and it just becomes a blurry mess. That ability to accelerate the audio is a massive time saver. And honestly, sometimes the intimacy of a podcast format really connects with people. It feels more like a one-on-one conversation, and that can make the information more engaging and memorable. It's a different experience than being broadcast to through a video. So, to summarize, multitasking, reduced cognitive load, speed control, and a unique sense of intimacy all contribute to why podcasts can be superior to videos, especially when you're short on time. It's a smarter way to consume information, fitting seamlessly into your life rather than demanding your full attention. Does that hit the mark?
Okay, so my next question for you: Can podcast improve language skill? Why do people trust podcasters? And how do podcasters connect us with experts? So please give me a very interesting and long answer on this topic.
Gotcha. Okay, let's dive into podcasts, language skills, trust, and access to experts. It's all interconnected, really. First off, yeah, podcasts can absolutely be a fantastic tool for improving language skills. It's a really natural and immersive way to learn, unlike traditional language learning methods that focus heavily on grammar rules and vocabulary lists. Podcasts expose you to the natural rhythm, intonation, and colloquialisms of a language. You hear how native speakers actually talk, not just textbook dialogues. This helps with listening comprehension, pronunciation, and even building your vocabulary organically. Exposure is key, right? And podcasts offer a huge amount of exposure. You can find podcasts on just about any topic imaginable, meaning you can find content that genuinely interests you, making the learning process far more enjoyable and thus effective. Plus, you can replay sections as many times as needed to fully grasp the meaning. It's learning at your own pace, on your own terms. Now, let's talk about trust. Why do people actually listen to and trust podcasters? I think a big part of it is authenticity. A lot of podcasters aren't polished media professionals. They often come across as genuine and relatable, like they're just talking to you, a friend. That creates a sense of intimacy and rapport that's hard to find with traditional media. Because many podcasters build their audience over time, and often starting small. There's a feeling of shared community. The audience often feels like they're part of the conversation, not just passive recipients of information. And crucially, there's often a lack of obvious commercial agendas. While many podcasts have sponsors, successful podcasters generally prioritize maintaining their audience's trust over blatant advertising. People can sniff out inauthenticity pretty quickly. Finally, how do podcasters connect us with experts? This is where things get really cool. Podcasts have democratized access to knowledge in a way that wasn't really possible before. Podcasters can interview leading experts in any field, scientists, authors, historians, entrepreneurs, and share their insights with a massive audience. It's an incredibly efficient way to learn from the best. Often these interviews are long form, allowing for in-depth exploration of complex topics. It's not just a soundbite. It's a nuanced conversation. Podcasters often do the legwork of researching and preparing thoughtful questions, curating the expertise for their listeners. It also bypasses the gatekeepers of traditional media. Experts who might not have access to major television or print platforms can now share their knowledge directly with a wide audience through podcasts. It opens up a world of diverse perspectives and voices. Essentially, podcasts offer a unique combination of immersive learning, authentic connection, and direct access to expertise. It's not just about consuming information. It's about building a relationship with the content and the people who create it. Was that a pretty thorough breakdown?
मैंने नहीं बोला कि क्लास के दौरान कोई बात नहीं करेगा, सिर्फ वो सुनना है कि वो क्या कह रही है, क्या करवा रही है। हेडफोन लगा रहा हूं, कान ही बोलते नहीं, मार खाए बगैर आपको कुछ शर्म नहीं आती।
Use here for a few minutes. Having any network issues, so I am again connected to the network.
जान
कॉल आ रही है
जी
जान कॉल आ रही है
ये क्या है? मैम ये क्या सर्वर है आपका? क्या करूँ इसको?
सामने देखो कौन है फिर सेव कर
सारे हान आ गए। चलो ओए सारे आना गए।
क्या
सारे आना गए।
पुलिस कौन है बताओ।
नहीं आया मजाक कर।
मुझे क्या बता रही हो
Hi, what's up?
Okay, so my next question from you is: Do podcast helps us stay updated with news?
Ah, gotcha. You're asking if broadcast news like TV or radio news helps us stay informed. It definitely can, but it's a bit more complicated than a simple yes or no. Broadcast news is designed to reach a large audience quickly, which makes it good for breaking news and urgent information. It's often visually engaging, which can help capture and hold attention. However, broadcast news is also constrained by TAMI. They have a limited amount of airtime, so they often have to simplify complex issues. That can lead to a lack of nuance or important context. Plus, broadcast news is often driven by ratings, which can influence the stories they choose to cover and how they present them. It's not necessarily a bad thing, just a thing to be aware of. There's a lot of research about how different media formats affect our understanding of events. Do you want to dive into that at all? Or are you wondering more about how broadcast news compares to other sources like print or online news?
Next question from you is: Do podcasts help us stay updated with news?
Okay, so you're shifting gears to podcasts for news updates. Smart move, actually. Podcasts offer a really interesting alternative to broadcasts and honestly, a lot of advantages when it comes to staying informed. For starters, podcasts generally allow for a much deeper dive into topics because they aren't constrained by time the same way broadcast news is. Podcast hosts can explore complex issues in detail, interview multiple experts, and present different perspectives. A good news podcast won't just tell you what happened, but also why it happened and what the potential consequences are. Another benefit is the variety. There's a news podcast for literally any interest, from daily summaries of global events to in-depth investigations of specific topics. You can curate a listening list that really matches your interests and keeps you informed about the things you care about. And as we talked about before, podcasts allow you to multitask. You can listen while commuting, exercising, or doing chores, turning otherwise unproductive time into an opportunity to learn. Plus, many news podcasts are ad-free or have minimal ads, which can create a more focused listening experience. Do you listen to any news podcasts already? If so, which ones? Or are you looking for recommendations? Silence can mean a lot of things. Are you processing, or would you like to switch
Okay,
gears?
okay. Okay,
Perhaps.
so viewer, this was our Maya. I hope you like it. I meet with your new Maya next topic. Thank you. Allah Hafiz. Pakistan Zindabad. Allah Hafiz.